A shot on Elo. Good! The Bulls winning!
You know what time it is.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection.
Holy cow! Oh my God! I don't believe it! It just continues! My, oh my! You believe in miracles?
Do you know what time it is?
I wake up in the morning after this excellence.
Welcome back into another episode of the Sports Hour. This is Mitch-Mo.
And this is Dallen. Guys, welcome on in to another episode of the Sports Hour, episode 183. We are live again on a Wednesday. It is November the 8th. Good to be here live on YouTube at youtube.com/the Sports Hour, guys. On Twitter or X at Sports Hour, guys. You can join us live every week. If you're tuning into the podcast on your podcast feed, hello, welcome on in. It's good to be here. Another jam-packed show today, Mitch. Halfway point of the NFL season. So celebrating today, as we pretty much do every year, with some midseason awards. I'm looking forward to this. It's a fun time to kind of look at the story of the NFL season so far, and then maybe even what we expect in the second half.
Yeah, no, it's a great time of year to kind of almost reflect back on and project ahead what we've seen and what we expect to see in the NFL season. Great time of year for us. And Dallen, I mean, I just got to say, Halloween's passed. We're in November. For me, November 1st hit, the holiday season's upon us. The holiday season upon us. I feel jolly.
Oh,
I am jolly from here through December 31st. This is my favorite time of year, not just for the holiday season, but for the sports season, because I feel like this is when the NFL season, when the college football season, football being our favorite sport here, really starts to get juicy. This is when the meat and bones of what we've been waiting for, what the season's accumulating towards, all comes together, and we get to see the real storylines of the NFL season start to develop on this back half. And part of that is what we're going to get into a little bit with these midseason awards, what we've seen and what we project seeing forward. So it'll be a fun time going through those midseason awards.
Oh yeah. And then, obviously we'll do the campus tour, talk college football. And I mean, there's 3 weeks left in the regular season in college football. We're 4 weeks away from championship weekend. I mean, like the college football season is suddenly almost over, which is crazy. So college football playoff implications are huge right now. And we'll have some more fun matchups to talk about this week.
Why does the college football season have to go so quickly? Why does it have to go so fast?
The difference between the 12-week and the 18-week is really, I mean, I guess 13 when you consider championship weekend.
Sure.
But the difference between that it seems huge. Maybe on the calendar it doesn't seem like that much, but yeah, I don't know. That's a stark difference between 12 games that you get to play and the full 17 games that every NFL team will play.
It just seems like it goes by so damn quick, and it makes me sad every time it's coming to an end. But we know the best part comes to the end. This is the climax, the top of the mountain. We're ready for it. So
absolutely.
We'll have some of that. We'll have our campus tour. We'll have a little Kraken update in between. And then, of course, as always, Dallen, we'll wind out the show with our quick picks. So lots of stuff going on here, Dallen, and I think we should kick it off right out of the gate with our NFL midseason awards. Not that these awards mean anything to these people because they don't even know we exist, but it's fun for us to give these awards out. So I don't know if we want to talk them the sport. I think we called them the Sporties last time we did this stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Something like that. Your Sporty Award is in the mail to all these guys.
Yes.
But let's kick it off, Dallen, with our MVP, because I think that as we look through the NFL season and as we've seen through the first part of this NFL season, there are some clear standout players that have had significant impacts on their team. And only one can win the Sporty Award for MVP. So, Dallen, I'm intrigued. Where does your MVP lie right now as far as the midseason the midpoint of the NFL season goes.
Yeah, this was a fun exercise. So when I first thought about this, I had two names that came to mind immediately. But then, of course, I start digging. I'm looking at stats. I'm looking at, obviously quarterbacks. This is a quarterback award, unless somebody does something absolutely crazy at another position. But I started looking. I ended up writing down 5 names. I wrote down five quarterbacks just to consider. Not that all 5 of them were super strong candidates, but 5 that I think should be in that conversation. Let me just read those 5 names, and I want to see what you think of that. I mean, it's nothing crazy, pretty chalk, but
yeah.
Patrick Mahomes,
okay.
Jalen Hurts,
okay,
Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Those are the 5 names I wrote. It feels like those are like the 5, right? If you had a top 5, those are probably the guys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Then it becomes like who sort of emerged in this first half to plant the flag to win the Sporty. And for me, Mitch, I ended up going with my quarter mark MVP, which was Tua Tagovailoa. I stuck with Tua on this one. He leads the NFL in passing yards at 2,609 passing yards. He leads the league with 19 touchdown passes. I think he's third in the league in yards per attempt at 8.5 yards per attempt, or second, excuse me. He is, he's up there. 69.5% of his passes have been completed. That's good for tied for 4th in the NFL. He has been statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, leading the best offense in the NFL. Dolphins averaging over 31 points a game this season. 6-3 record. Yeah, that's not as good as Jalen Hurts, or you could say Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, slightly. But I think Miami's been one of the great stories, especially that offense and the output that we've seen from them. One of the best stories of this season. So at this point, I felt good with Tua. So I went with Tua. Not that it was super sold on him, but he was one of those 2 names that I thought of initially when it came to the MVP discussion.
Yeah, I think there's 2 that really comes to mind for me, and I'm curious who the second name is, because I think that people are going to differ here, because I went with Tua as well for that MVP. And for a lot of the same reasons that you just touched on. And look, I mean, this guy, look at the yards per pass completion as well. 4th in the league right now at 12.2. And when you think about who his number 1 target is, and even who his number 2 target is, it makes complete sense that he is completing 12.2 yards per completion, throwing to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on a weekly basis. That makes complete sense. And I also thought about this too. What quarterback of those 5, because I didn't make a list of 5, but you certainly listed the 5 that would be on my list. Which had the bigger impact on their team? It's probably Tua. I think Tua probably has the bigger impact on his own individual team than any of those other quarterbacks. So Tua does give the slight edge. I am curious to know who that second guy was, and mine was Lamar Jackson. I'm interested to know if it was that or not.
Lamar is like the trendy pick right now. If you look at PFF gave Lamar the MVP. I think ESPN, I saw another article, and I can't remember who it was. They also had Lamar as an MVP, which I found a little bit surprising. And you dig into the stats, obviously the rushing stats, he leads all quarterbacks, 440 rushing attempts. It's like 20th in the league, by the way, of any player. 5 rushing touchdowns. He's been extremely efficient through the air. 71.5% completion percentage for Lamar, under 2,000 passing yards, only 9 passing touchdowns to 3 interceptions. We've seen him take care of the ball better. We've seen him look more under control as a passer. I just struggled with the difference between 9 passing touchdowns and 19 passing touchdowns.
100%.
And that's where I think down the stretch of the season, I think Lamar should be in this conversation and could be arguably a favorite to win it down the stretch. He's going to have to get some more passing touchdowns or rushing touchdowns to get those numbers. I do think Lamar deserves recognition, but the second name was actually Jalen Hurts. That was the other name that came to mind. It was Tua and it was Jalen Hurts. He's 8-1 as a starter. He's completing almost 69% of his passes, 2,300 passing yards, 15 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, and 7 rushing touchdowns to go along with it. So obviously Jalen having a great year, was number 2 in MVP last season. So definitely seems like a guy people would want to give the award. and his team has the best record in the NFL right now. So, I mean, that doesn't hurt your chances either. But I do think Tua, because of the numbers that he's put up, deserves to be the pick right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, this guy has just been, video game numbers at this point. I mean, this guy's having a absolute career year. And look at me.
I'm shocked you picked him. I thought you would pick Hurts. I thought you would just not go Tua.
I like a left-handed quarterback here for MVP. How about that? I mean, his name's not Steve Young, so how about that? I like that.
Wow, look at this. Tua Tagovailoa, Michael Penix Jr. just changing Mitch day by day here on the podcast, just converting him to the lefty QBs. It's incredible.
You know what, Dallen? There's a lot in my life I need to change, and one of them was being less harsh on left-handed quarterbacks. So I am becoming a reformed man, that's for sure.
There you go.
Do we want to go with the rookies, or do we want to go
with
the
offensive player of the year?
Okay, so let's go with the offensive player of the year here. And look, I'm going to stick in that Dolphins offense.
Yeah.
I think that the easy pick would be Tua. I think that Tua would be the easy pick, but I'm not going to go with Tua. I'm going to go with his battery mate here. I'm going to go with Tyreek Hill. I mean, this guy is on a legendary pace right now of being the first 2,000-yard receiver. Trying to get his numbers back up here for us. But the pace that this guy is on is absolutely staggering right now at 1,076 yards, first in the league, second in receptions at 69. Stephon Diggs actually holds that title at 70, which makes complete sense with the struggles that the Vikings offense has seen this time. First in receiving touchdowns with 8. Most in receiving yards. He's averaging 119.6 receiving yards a game right now, Dallen.
Yeah.
I mean, ungodly numbers from Tyreek Hill, and a guy that's been in the league this long seems to be usually a guy his age would be on the backside of his prime. He seems to be just reaching the peak here of his prime. Tyreek is got a very, very strong case for offensive player of the year. And I think that, at the end of the year, if he continues his pace, he should be that, if not maybe MVP, because he is that good.
Yeah, if he can hit that 2,000-yard mark and, get to, he's got to get at least 15 touchdowns. He's at 8 receiving touchdowns right now. If he can get to 15, yeah, I think he'll definitely be an MVP conversation. I went with Tyreek Hill as well, though I do think, it's really interesting how similar seasons right now Tyreek and A.J. Brown are having.
Oh, very
incredible.
Close. Yes.
So you mentioned Tyreek Hill. I'll read these one more time. 69 receptions, 1,076 yards, and 8 touchdowns, averaging 15.6 yards per catch. A.J. Brown, 67 receptions, 1,005 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaging 15 yards per catch. 2 less receptions, like 71 less yards and a couple less touchdowns. That's the difference between these guys right now. I mean, if we had 2 2,000-yard receivers in a season, I mean, holy smokes. They are on incredible pace right now. I do think Tyreek's the favorite. I would mention A.J. Brown in there as maybe a close second. The other names that I wrote down, the one that I think is in the most contention, that would be Christian McCaffrey. Right now, leading all rushers, 652 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, also adding 292 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air as a catcher. I would also mention Raheem Mostert at this moment with 600 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per attempt and 11 rushing touchdowns, which I believe leads the NFL right now. So Mostert obviously having an incredible season. He had some really big games, and that has helped his case. But if he was able to keep up that pace, I think he would have a shot there. Those were the 4 names I wrote down. I didn't really consider anybody else in this award, and I think Tyreek Hill is the for sure favorite.
I think an important note to make about Raheem Mostert, doing this at age 31.
Yeah.
When running back should be on this steep decline by age 31, and he's doing this now. I mean, this is impressive stuff from Raheem Mostert. Very gracious that I have him on one of my fantasy teams. Very gracious.
That's a lucky bench stash that you had. It was just like, oh, he turns out to be incredible.
one of my favorite flex plays that I get to plug in every week is Raheem Mostert. He is a no doubt play every single week, and I love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Love that.
Little boom bust, but I like it.
Yeah.
Dallen, defensive defensive player of the year. I'm a little curious because defensive player of the year to me seems more like a stat. I mean, everything is stat driven. It's a stat driven award, but defensive player more so in that it's either sacks or interceptions. There's not a whole lot of well-rounded defensive players that maybe were the best defensive players throughout the course of the year. So I'm curious to what direction you went when we're talking about defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any defensive backs that really stand out at this point that deserve strong contention at this halfway mark. I think it's mainly along the defensive line. Edge rushers, pass rushers is what we see, big sack numbers. And I went with Myles Garrett as my pick, the edge from the Cleveland Browns. 9.5 sacks this year. It's tied for second in the league. 18 QB hits is second in the NFL as well. He's got 4 forced fumbles, a pass deflected, a fumble recovered. He's leading one of the best defenses in the league, and one of the biggest surprises I think in the league so far this year is how good this Cleveland Browns defense has been. It's been stalwart. It's really been impressive, and he has been leading that. So I think for those reasons, I will go with Myles Garrett.
I love that pick. I think that's a great pick. I went with actually I had 2 names written down as my finalists for this, and I'm going to go with the other defensive front 4 guy that I think is fitting for this award. I'm going to go with Danielle Hunter. Hunter, 10 sacks. I'm going to mention a lot of the same stats you just did. 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Has been a stalwart on that Minnesota defense, and for a team that seems to be very up and down, he seems to be the one consistent piece that they can always rely on. Danielle Hunter seems to be, in my mind, the best defensive player in the league thus far through that this year. Myles Garrett certainly is up there in that conversation with me as well. I did write down another name though, and this is a numbers driven pick here, but Geno Stone from Baltimore, leading the league right now in interceptions with 6, 2 more than anyone else. So that Baltimore defense kind of given shades to shades of the 2000s Raven defense a little bit of how dominant they've been. So do want to give a little bit of a shout out there, but I did go with Danielle Hunter as my defensive player of the year.
Yeah, and he leads the league in sacks, so makes sense at 10. Half a sack above guys like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, and the other name that I wrote down, which was TJ Watt. And I do think TJ Watt actually may have the strongest case. He's a guy who's won it before. He has 9.5 sacks, 3 fumble recovered, 2 forced fumbles, 6 pass deflected, and an interception. That interception just kind of gives him that little oomph over there. I also look at QB hits. I think QB hits is a good stat because that proves how many times you're getting there, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing with Danielle Hunter I found really interesting. And he was a name that I included, obviously, when you lead the league in sacks right now, you need to be mentioned. 10 sacks and only 9 QB hits. Right. So that's half as many QB hits as Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, who both have 18. Max Crosby's at 13. Josh Allen, who has 9 sacks, is at 16. So just to kind of give you the comparison there on the guys that follow after him. So yeah, he's obviously getting sacks. He's getting to the quarterback. He's making it happen, but he's just being incredibly efficient when he gets there, right? When he gets to the quarterback, he's going to take him down, right? That's kind of what those numbers prove to me, which obviously is not a bad thing. It proves how effective he's been. So I like those picks. It's a close race though. I mean, there's like 5 guys right there that have 6 guys that have 9 sacks or more this season, right there, all in a group, separated by 1 sack. So this is anyone's award. Micah Parsons, another name to keep an eye on. I think he's a little farther down there, but a versatile player. He'll rack up some other stats too. So,
yeah, maybe a sleeper if he turns it on, guys like Khalil Mack or Josh Allen,
right.
That could turn it on there at the back half of the year. So, love that pick down. Let's get into the rookies, huh?
Yeah.
Let's do a little rookie talk. And Offensive rookie of the year, Dallen. I really struggled between these two, and because there are two clear favorites in this for me right now.
Yeah.
It's just who do I like more? And I think you might pick the other guy. So I think we should highlight both. No. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go with CJ Stroud.
Okay.
I'm going to go CJ Stroud.
That's fine. That's fine. Because you know what, Mitch? The brain tells you to pick CJ Stroud, right?
The heart says Puka Nacua.
The heart screams for Puka. But the brain tells you to pick CJ Stroud because he has 14 touchdown passes to 1 interception. He's setting rookie passing records. I mean, he's got the Texans at 4-4. I mean, yeah, CJ Stroud is absolutely killing it this season. And yeah, should he be the offensive rookie of the year? Will he be the offensive rookie of the year? Okay, yeah, that's fine. But we could love Puka, right?
We love Puka.
We gotta love Puka. And we're talking about a guy, Mitch, who is third in the NFL, or what is I gotta pull it up right now. I had it up. I think he's third in receiving yards this season.
Fourth in receiving yards
at 827. He's got 64 receptions. That's also good for tied for fourth.
He also has almost 300 yards more than any other rookie wide receiver this year.
Yeah.
Second is Jordan Addison at 534. He has 827. 827.
Yeah.
Now, the touchdown numbers aren't there, but he's a target monster. He's a reception. I think he's like fourth. He's like fifth or sixth in receptions this year. I mean, he's incredible. He's incredible. Yeah. But it is CJ Stroud. It is CJ Stroud who's the offensive rookie of the year right now to that point of the year.
Yeah, it is. I am gonna pick Puka for the award. I'll give it to him because the first half has been incredible. Now down the stretch, we know what will happen. It'll be CJ Stroud. I mean, and Puka has not been able to keep up the pace that he did those first few games when Cooper Kupp was out, and we all sort of saw that coming, but he has clearly established himself as a go-to piece on this offense, one of the best players on this Rams offense, period. Mm-hmm. And when the only two guys in the league that are getting more targets than you are Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, I think you're doing something right as a fifth-round draft pick. So, I will pick Puka for this, fully knowing that, he won't win the award, but he wins it in my heart.
He should though. He should. I mean, it's going to be it's not a shame. It's not a shame, but it's going to feel so icky to have a guy that was so good and so unexpected not win the award because the guy that should have been a front runner at the beginning of his rookie year anyway does win the award. It just feels icky. I don't know. But
and that's the bummer about it, right? Is it's like, you add in the element of this guy was a 5th round draft pick who was fighting to like win a starting spot, maybe,
a roster spot. I mean,
to being one of the best wide receivers in the league this season, we expected CJ Stroud to look something good this year, but didn't expect much from Puka unless you were in the know. And then, maybe you were expecting stuff from Puka.
I felt like a genius when I drafted him in fantasy in like the 4th round.
Saw it. So. I mean, not this. I'm not going to say I saw this, but
no, he was going to write my taxi squad, but damn it. He's a weekly starter now. I love it. I love it.
Has to be.
I love it. Dallen, defensive rookie of the year. I think this was probably the toughest one to pick because
100%.
there's no real standout. Mm-mm. There's no real standout. And we kind of almost knew that a little bit. I think coming into this season, like there was a lot of good defensive players in this draft, but knowing that this draft was a little bit weaker than past years, like it was going to be hard to find a standout defensive rookie. And it's showing now. There were 2 names that came to mind for me. I think I'm going to go with the defensive back here. I'm going to go with Devon Witherspoon.
Okay.
From Seattle. He's just been I know he hasn't played the entire season. I think he's missed 2 games. But he has played the most solid, I think, out of any of the rookies, the most consistently solid out of any of the rookies. He's been an integral part of that Seattle defense. Also being a defensive back and picking up 2 sacks as well as the interception. He's been locked down. The guy's just been really all around really good. And I'm curious to see if you're going to name the other guy that I had written down, because the other guy that I have written down is the leader of all rookies in sacks this year. But Devon Witherspoon for me has been the most impressive rookie, I guess, or the most impactful rookie throughout the first half of the year.
Yeah, I think it's hard with corners to really value the impact with just stats, right? And I think that's kind of part of the problems that we see, right? Is unless you have 6 interceptions, are you not a good corner? Well, no, maybe you don't get targeted in your Sauce Gardner, right? Or maybe you need to look at other numbers, right? How often what kind of yards are they giving up when they're targeted, right? What are the numbers while targeted? And that's going to give you a better indication. Because statistically, you don't look at Devon Witherspoon and say, oh yeah, defensive rookie of the year, but you see the impact when he plays, and you look at the advanced stats, you look at, numbers when he's targeted. He's, people are throwing under 40% passing when they're throwing at him. He is playing incredible when he's being targeted, and he's probably not being targeted that often because he's good. So I like that pick. He was a name I wrote down. I will go with the favorite, probably the heavy favorite, I'd say, based on what I've seen other people make on these picks, and that's Jalen Carter.
Oh, okay.
Eagles defensive tackle. Right now sits at 4 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles. Again, like you said, there's not a rookie that's like racked up 6 or 7 sacks at this point of the season. There's not a rookie that's racked up 4 interceptions at this point of the season. It's still pretty wide open. But you see the impact that Jalen Carter has on the football field for the Eagles, the burst that he has, the energy that he brings to what is already a great defensive line. And it feels like Carter's only going to become more impactful down the stretch of the season. So I think his numbers will only improve from here on out. So I'm going to go with Jalen Carter.
All right. I mean, I love it. That wasn't the name that I had written down. I actually had Byron Young from the Rams written down.
Oh, yeah.
The young man out of Tennessee, with his 5 sacks, leading all rookies. I think that his impact, the Rams team, obviously the Rams are very hit or miss, very streaky. You never know what LA Rams team you're going to get week to week. But he seems to be a pretty consistent part of that defense. But I do love the Jalen Carter pick, because he seems like he's the best defensive rookie on the best team.
Right.
Throughout the course of the year so far. So I think that does make him kind of a front runner in this one. So I do love Jalen Carter for that pick. Absolutely love it.
Coach of the year.
Coach of the year.
Our last of the real awards, I guess you could say, because then we have, our own awards.
Sporties are real awards, Dallen. They're real awards.
These are all real awards.
4 more after this.
But the coach of the year, I will go first here. I'm going with the most handsome coach in the NFL.
Oh, wow.
DeMeco Ryans. That's who I'm picking for coach of the year, because we just didn't expect Houston to look this competent this early, frankly. Right? I thought they'd go 7-10. That was my preseason prediction. I thought they would be an up and coming team. But they're 4-4, and frankly, I don't think they're out of this AFC South race by any means. I really don't.
No.
With the way that this offense is rolling right now and all the talent on this team, albeit young, they're proving to be a really competitive team. And that a lot of that credit has to go to DeMeco Ryans, Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, and that whole new coaching staff who's come in and revitalized this franchise and got this team playing at a very high level. So 4-4 on the season. Expected to be and was one of the worst teams last year. So I think that deserves a lot of credit. So I gave it to DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah, you mentioned they're not out of this race in the AFC South. They're very much in it. They're second place right now, only 2 games back of the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have had weeks where we go, wow, that doesn't look like the team we expected them to be. And so, maybe the Texans put themselves in a position to, I'm not going to say contend for the division championship, because that would be absurd, I think, to point out right now with knowing what we know about them. But they could be that game back of the Jags and maybe flirt with that wild card spot with the trajectory that they're on. They're right around league average of points allowed They're right around league average of points scored. So a team that I think that most people, and I know I was very low on them, had at like the very bottom of the league, seems to be a very competent and competitive team. And D'Amico Ryans, not only the most handsome man in the NFL, but one of the most competent coaches that we have in the NFL, seems to have them on the right track. So I love that. I love that pick for D'Amico Ryans. Dallen, I am going to go with probably one of the more lovable guys in the NFL, and a team that we were just a year too early on last year. I think that they've definitely hit their stride, and I think that these guys will be NFC North champions come to the end of the year. I'm going Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell is just, he has got this team rolling. And he has got this approach that's almost very college football-esque, but guys are buying into the oorah type of motivation that he puts forth in the locker room. Dan Campbell has the Lions rolling. He does the most with as little as he has. Like, he makes he gets the most out of his team, I think, more than any other coach in the NFL. Dan Campbell's the man. I think that he's my front runner for the coach of the year.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think he probably should be the favorite, I guess, at this point, considering where Detroit is at in the standings and the turnaround that he's been able to do there in Detroit. So I love that pick. I don't know. I want to ask you if there's another name or two that you thought of or considered here. The one sort of sneaky name that I thought, maybe not right now, but with what they've doing, if they could keep it up and sneak into the playoffs, Robert Saleh and the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, you consider Aaron Rodgers going down in the first 75 seconds of the season, if, and with where they're at right now, not out of it, like just not, they're 4-4. They're, just like a game back of a playoff spot right now. Obviously things don't look pretty, but they're finding ways to win and stay in this thing. So if they were to somehow make the playoffs as a 7 seed at 9-8 or 10 is whatever it is, I'm just like, there'd be a really strong case that Robert Saleh could be coach of the year. So that was another name that just kind of stuck in my mind. What about you?
Yeah, I think Robert Saleh is a great pick. Mike McDaniel is another one that stands out for me. If the Dolphins can prove that they are contenders and not pretenders and start winning the tougher games that they should be winning. I mean, they haven't beat a team above 500 all year long, but if they start winning those games against winning teams that they should be, and they get themselves in an AFC title or AFC East championship position and start, they win that division and they get themselves in the high seat, I think Mike McDaniel could be a conversation piece for that coach of the year for sure.
Yeah, I like it. All right, biggest surprise. So we came up with a few of our own awards to wrap this thing up. We'll start with the biggest surprise of the first half of the season. Mitch, what do you say?
I think my biggest surprise is how competitive the AFC North is. That's my biggest surprise. I thought that there were two teams at the top. It was Ravens, Bengals. Right now, the Bengals, they're sitting last place in the division. Get this, at 5-3, tied with third and second place also. I mean, this whole division from top. Now, I know that the Steelers have lucked their way into some wins. The Browns are, I think, overperforming what we would expect from them. That defense has been insane throughout the first half of the year. But the AFC North is proving to be very competitive. Even probably the worst team in this division, which is the Steelers, somehow sitting at second place in the division. They're still the worst team in the division, still competitive. They're still competitive. I love how competitive the AFC North is. And I think that for me was the biggest surprise because I thought there was clearly a 2-horse race here in this division.
Yeah, I like that. Especially, I mean, I need to stop counting out Pittsburgh first off. Every year I'm like, this is the year it falls, this is the year they finally go under 500. Never going to happen as long as Mike Tomlin's there. I'm going to learn that lesson this year. No more. They're going to go 9-8 next year. The bare minimum to get over 500, but I'll have them there. And the Browns have been a surprise, especially with how good that defense is. And this is all, 5-4, despite Deshaun Watson not being healthy. I mean, he started 5 games. PJ Walker's come in and they haven't been great in those games, but with Deshaun, they're 4-1. So
Right.
when Deshaun's playing, this team is winning if they can keep him healthy and the defense keeps playing at a high level. Yeah, I mean, this has been a very competitive division. I love that. I also love that we chose very similar things here because my biggest surprise this year is not the competitive AFC North, Mitch. It's the competitive AFC South. Speaking of D'Amico Ryans and the Houston Texans, I think before the season, it was really easy to say, you know what? Yeah, this is Jacksonville. And then a bunch of everybody else trying to figure some stuff out, right? 2 rookie quarterbacks. You had the Titans with Will Levis, Malik Willis. And it was like, eventually they'll reset. And we might have some really bad teams in this division. But right now, Jacksonville sits atop at 6-2. Houston at 4-4, 2 games back. The Colts at 4-5. And Tennessee at 3-5, and Tennessee at the bottom, but seemingly found something with Will Levis, seemed to have found some energy at least to remain competitive down the stretch of the season. Even without Anthony Richardson, Mitch, the Indianapolis Colts have a top 10 offense this season. They are 7th in scoring offense this season, averaging 25.8 points per game. I mean, I didn't see that coming. A lot of credit needs to go to Shane Steichen and the job that he's done there as the new head coach. But they've been a surprise how competitive the Colts have been offensively, especially with Gardner Minshew coming in. And then we already talked about Houston and the job that D'Amico Ryans is doing over there. So all of a sudden, I'm like, Jacksonville can't coast down the second half at all. And I would have thought before the season, they could go 9-8 and they'll probably still win it. I don't think that's true at this point of the season. I think these teams are going to be competitive. They may even get better down the stretch, and that's going to be a challenge for Jacksonville to stay on top here. I do think Jacksonville should be the heavy favorite, but I love how competitive and surprisingly competitive this division has been this season.
Very surprisingly competitive. Colts, speaking of the Colts, shout out Gardner Minshew and shout out Zach Moss, who has filled in for the absence of Jonathan Taylor and has become a perennial workhorse guy for them when Jonathan Taylor is out of the lineup, and Gardner Minshew filling in for the injured Anthony Richardson. Fantastic job. You and I both big Gardner Minshew fans. We love to see when he's on the field. But yeah, I mean, I still see this as a 2-horse race. I don't know. I feel like the Colts have this feeling of they could plateau, but the Texans coming out of nowhere, man, they're really going to challenge. I think if Jacksonville takes a misstep or two, Texans, they're going to have a serious opportunity to capitalize on that and put themselves in a position to compete for that divisional title. So I love that pick as well as, how competitive the AFC South is. Love it.
Yeah. Biggest disappointment so far this NFL season, Mitch?
I mean, for me, it's the Bears. It's the Bears. I have to go with the Bears. This just felt like the year we could at least show progress, and it hasn't happened. Like there's plenty of other teams I think that we could say are more disappointing than the Bears, but probably not many. I mean, like this felt like the team that we could turn on a Sunday. They may not win a ton of games, but they might be kind of fun. And part of this falls on Justin Fields. Part of this falls on the offensive scheming that they had there. Luke Getsy had a tough time getting that offense rolling. I think that there were some serious internal issues within the Chicago front office that they needed to figure out within the coaching staff. It just seems like as a whole, a team that we should have been excited about seeing take that leap forward. Pretty disappointing that we haven't really seen that leap at all throughout the first half of the year. So I'm regrettably going with my Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it's certainly not ideal for Chicago. Not the season you wanted to see as a Bears fan. The good news is that the Carolina Panthers suck, and so do you. And so 2 top 3 draft picks, 2 top 5 draft picks likely in your future. And if you need to reset this franchise in a big way with some important players, you're going to be in a great position to do that. So yep. I guess that would be the silver lining in this. Although, like you said, we expected a leap a step forward for Chicago. And if anything, feels like they've just remained stagnant, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My biggest disappointment this year, Mitch, and I put this team as my biggest disappointment at our quarter mark superlatives. I'm going to be a little more specific on this. Again, my biggest disappointment is the Cincinnati Bengals, but specifically, I'm going to talk about Cincinnati's offense, right? We expect Joe Burrow in this offense to be good. The defense has been a surprise since that Super Bowl run, and even last year, the defense was 5th in scoring defense in 2022, and in this year, 12th in scoring defense, averaging, they're giving up 0.2 more points per game on defense. So the defense is doing exactly what we expect of it, doing what they did last year. The defense has been the reason Cincinnati's been competitive. The problem, Mitch, is the Cincinnati offense, which has gone from a top 10 offense to something unrecognizable. They were 7th in scoring last year, averaging 26.1 points per game. They are 23rd in scoring offense this season, averaging 19.4 points per game. They're scoring a full touchdown less this year than they were last year. And yes, injuries have played a very big portion of this. Joe Burrow had the training camp injury. He was clearly hobbled to start this season. They were clearly, slow to get going, and that was understandable. You've had Jamar Chase get banged up. You've had T. Higgins get banged up. I get all that. But that's a huge disappointment to drop off a full touchdown on your scoring, and it puts them in a position where now they're 5-4. They're competing in this or 5-3, they're competing in these standings, but they're a full game and a half back right now of Baltimore. And this is a very competitive AFC where nothing is guaranteed. Buffalo is not slated to make the playoffs right now. The Buffalo Bills, because they're 5-4. That's how competitive this conference is. So I feel like Cincinnati's playing with fire. They've got to figure things out, and they've got to figure it out quick heading into the second half of the season. And this offense needs to get going. Again, the defense is on pace. It's doing what it's doing. This offense is clearly lacking. And that's definitely been one of the biggest disappointments for me this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I get you. I get you. I mean, there's just so much expectations for that team, and for them to fall short like this, it's just, I get it. I get why they're definitely one of the biggest disappointments for you. Dallen, the best storyline throughout the first half of the year. I'm gonna let you go first here. I want to know what your favorite is here.
Okay. Best storyline this season to me, at least certainly one of the most interesting ones. 10 rookie quarterbacks have started a game this season or will start a game this season. I think on Sunday when Tommy DeVito starts for the New York Giants. That is an NFL record. Since we've been tracking stats all the way back to 1950, the previous record was 9 in a season in 2019, and we're halfway there, Mitch. We're only halfway there, and we've already seen 10 rookie quarterbacks, and we knew this was a talented rookie quarterback class, right? I mean, we saw 3 guys in the top 4. We knew that there was going to be a lot of talent at the top, but I think maybe what was underrated by a lot of NFL fans, certainly something that you saw coming if you were watching college football, was how deep this quarterback class was. I mean, we just look at the sheer number of guys that were taken from the 3rd to the 6th round in this draft. I mean, it was a incredible number of players, and almost all of them have seen some sort of playing time, albeit due to injuries or just, benchings. But we've seen a lot of rookies, and it hasn't all looked great, but I love seeing that much young talent in the league, especially young talent getting playing time early, mid-round, late-round quarterbacks that are getting a shot to get some tape, prove what they've got early on while the starter is injured. And it's worked for some teams. Hasn't worked for others, obviously, but one of those fascinating things this season.
Yeah, I feel like we're right now in the NFL in a transitional period. We just had, the Phillip Rivers, the Eli Mannings. We had all of these retirements over the last 5 or 6 years of kind of this generation of quarterbacks that we've seen. And now we're kind of ushering in the new ones. And this seems like kind of that wave that's going to come behind the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons and Patrick Mahomes that era, this feels like the next kind of wave that's going to fall right in behind them. And so to see so many young quarterbacks get an opportunity to showcase their talent at the highest level is absolutely fantastic. And like you said, a record that there will be at least 10 rookie quarterbacks starting this season. Incredible stat line. Love that storyline for the NFL season so far. Dallen, mine is a recent one. In fact, recent as of like the last week, but I think it's poignant and I think it should be pointed out. The Raiders' instant turnaround after the McDaniels firing. And I think this is my favorite one purely based off the fact is we could see the impact that a bad head coach has on an organization. I think that there are people that still held out, like Josh McDaniel truthers that still held out that like he can get this organization to run. He can still be a good head coach. It's very clear that he can't. But for him to get fired, for the GM Dave Ziegler to get fired in the same day, a lot of other coaching staff, Antonio Pierce, the linebackers coach, to step up as the interim, and Devontae Adams, once the best wide receiver in the NFL, step up and say just a day after his head coach was fired, said, I'm ready to run through a brick wall for this guy, and have them go out and dominate the way they did on Sunday against the New York Giants. I think this is a serious turning point for the Las Vegas Raiders. Maybe not a playoff bound team, but I think that this should be one of the better storylines of the season, because it seems like that the Raiders owner, Mark Davis, now has his eyes set on what path this team should be going down. Quit going for the flashy hire, quit going for the flashy signing, and build a good, solid football team. And I think that this is one of the more poignant things that we've seen throughout the year. So I'm going with the Raiders' instant turnaround just a few days after firing Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, the vibes are high in Vegas, and it is amazing to see the stark contrast in the energy, the vibe, the demeanor of the players and the people within that organization after that firing. We'll see how good it helps them down the stretch. Certainly going to be better than whatever they were doing, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
records-wise, they were 3-5. They weren't horrible, but this team did not look good at any point. So we'll see how they improve it. I am holding out. I do not have any belief that Mark Davis is going to learn anything from this, because Rich Bisaccia did a hell of a job at the end of his tenure as an interim head coach. And what did they do in the offseason? They went and hired a flashy new head coach instead of just sticking with the guy that had actually won some freaking games. So if they hire Antonio Pierce to be the guy moving, if he actually does that, then yeah, he learned his lesson. We'll see if Mark Davis will learn his lesson on that, but certainly good news for the Raiders, for Raiders fans, and for the rest of the season for Vegas. Who knows? I mean, they're 4-5. And again, we talked about it. The AFC is competitive, but it's not out of the question if they can turn things around. They've got talent on that roster. So yeah, that's a fun one.
Antonio Pierce, I think, also the only head coach with earrings as well. So
yeah, I did see one thing I wanted to mention. He had practice squad players on the sideline this week. That's not NFL protocol. Practice squad players aren't on the sideline during games in the NFL. But he brought them on, and he had a great answer as to why he did that, about being part of the team. And I like just little things like that make a huge difference. When you see a guy like that, you're like, he's looking out for 1 through 70 on this team, right? Not just the 53-man roster, not just the starters or the stars. He's looking out for every single player on this team, and that has to have an impact across the locker room. So little things like that make a big difference, and he's certainly been impressive in his interim role.
Oh yeah, absolutely impressive. And he's only 1 week in. I mean,
exactly.
I'm gonna be really excited to see what the impact is for the weeks moving forward. Dallen, it's time to stake our flag, though, as we get to the last midseason award. It's time to stake our flag, Dallen. Be bold, be spicy, be hot with this take. It is our second half bold prediction. And would you like to kick it off with this?
Sure.
Or? All right, let's hear it.
All right. My bold prediction for the second half. right now, if you look at the standings, we've talked a lot about the AFC, how competitive it is, how tight that the playoff race is going to be in this conference. If you look at the standings right now, you look at the AFC East, a lot of talented teams. New England aside, a lot of talented teams in there. Only one playoff team right now projected in the AFC East. That's the Miami Dolphins. I believe that stands at the end of the season. My bold prediction is that only one AFC East team will make the playoffs this season. Maybe it's Miami, maybe it's Buffalo, but only one of them is going to make the playoffs because the AFC North is going to steal a couple bids. Somebody else will steal a bid, and someone's getting left out, and it's an AFC East team. So I'm saying only one AFC East team is going to make the playoffs this season.
I do think that's bold. I like that. I like that a lot, and there's a lot of rhyme and reason to it as well. I think that you brought that with a lot of logic and substance to back it up. Look, Buffalo has struggled. Buffalo has struggled playing good teams, and we know they're a good team. They just don't play good teams very well. And so they put themselves in this 5-4 position that they are in right now. And so I think that's a very possible thing to happen. And I like that bold take. I like that bold take. Dallen, I'm going Carolina Reaper hot with this one. Really hot. And I'm going to stay in the AFC East. So it's going to kind of contradict what I just praised you for and what you just talked about, but I'm going to say it anyway. The New York Jets will make the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers will start the wild card game. I know it sounds. I know that sounds wild. I know it sounds wild, but I think the Aaron Rodgers progression with how well he's rehabbed from this injury. You hear him talk about it on Pat McAfee, and he's been kind of vague, but you see the videos of him throwing. If they're in a situation where they could go and win a title now, I don't think it's in their best interest to start Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not going to put them past it. I'm not going to put it past them to start Aaron Rodgers if he's feeling like he could go out and play in a wild card game. It's probably the spiciest thing I've ever said on the show, but I'm going to say that the New York Jets make the playoffs and Aaron Rodgers will start the AFC wildcard game for him.
There you go. New York Jets fans, it's all going to work out, baby. Don't you even sweat. Zach Wilson's got you just enough to get there. And then good old Papa Rogers is coming in to save the day on half a ACL or whatever. That's I love it. I love it. I mean, you see these warm-up videos of him, and it's like, how the hell is he doing this? Like 2 months removed from
no walking boot,
nothing.
He's bouncing around. I mean,
I don't know if I believe it yet, to be honest with you. I know that everyone's kind of laying the groundwork for, if they made it, he could. I know everyone's laying it for. I kind of feel like it's all hype. That's Aaron Rodgers. He likes to talk it up. He likes to draw attention. He doesn't want to get out of the narrative. So he's going to tease all year. Oh, maybe I could come back. Well, I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know. It's like, it's whatever. And he's going to keep us all interested. And then, who knows? But I love it. I love the bold prediction. Got to go big or go home. That's what we do.
Absolutely. Go big or go home. Go big or go home, Dallen. Dallen, that is going to wrap up our mid-season awards. Great stuff. But I got a little bit of a top 5 here for you, Dallen. And of course, we talk about the back half of the season, and things can go incredibly well for a team to get them into that playoff push, get them in a playoff spot, playoff situation. But things can also go really, really bad. And that's why on this week's edition of Mitch-Mo's Top 5 List of the Week, we're going to be doing the top 5 worst collapses in sports history.
Oh.
Now, I stuck to primarily season collapses, so not single game, except for one.
Okay.
Except for one, and it's because I just can't not mention it. So I have to put it in there. And it is kind of a prolonged collapse. So it kind of falls into the criteria that I had, but kind of doesn't at the same time. But I wanted to include it because it is quite historic. So anyway, Dallen, let's get in to the collapses, and let's start with number 5 on the list. We're going to go with the 1995 California Angels AL West race. They won a game on August 20th, of 1995, which gave them a 12.5 game lead over the third place Seattle Mariners. By September 22nd, they went 6-24 throughout those remaining games, including 2 9-game losing streaks, and the Mariners had a 2-game lead. Now, the Angels rounded out the year with a 5-game win streak, and they wound up tying the Mariners, going to a final game, a 1-game playoff with Seattle, which they ultimately lost to Seattle. Of course, we know that whole 95 playoff run for the Seattle Mariners, the Ken Griffey Jr., rounding third and coming and scoring home. The Macklemore song is incredible if you haven't heard it. But the Angels' collapse of going 6-24 over a month-long span to blow a 12.5 game lead has to be on the list. Give me the 95 Angels, number 5.
Yeah, that's rough. That's real bad. That's 20% winning percentage. I mean, that is like, yikes. Holy
gnarly.
Smokes. Yeah.
It's gnarly. Dallen, number 4 on the list, and look, we're both going to be represented on this, but number 4 on the list, I'm going with the 2018 Carolina Panthers. 6-2 to start the 2018 campaign. They were just behind the Saints, who started 7-1. Looked like the Saints were probably going to be the favorites to win NFC South, and the Carolina was going to be in that wild card. But this was probably going to be 2 double-digit win teams getting into the playoffs. Very strong NFC South. That didn't happen, though. The Panthers absolutely imploded. They lost 7 consecutive games, including 5 straight by a touchdown or less. Now, they were playing with a banged-up Cam Newton, but they tumbled all the way to 7-9 and missed the playoffs. And since 2000, only the 2007 Detroit Lions are the only team to start 6-2 and finish 7-9, just like the Panthers did in 2018. Give me the 2018 Carolina Panthers, number 4.
Hoy. Mitch, I've had some low moments as a fan in my life of different teams. As a Panthers fan, obviously Super Bowl 50, losing that one, that was really tough. I remember exactly where I was when that season collapsed. I was in a Buffalo Wild Wings on a Thursday night, rocking my Cam Newton jersey, 6-2, heading into a great matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm the only Panthers fan in this Buffalo Wild Wings in Midvale, Utah. I'm very excited. I've convinced my wife to come along and watch this football game with me at B-Dubs. We're playing on Thursday night, babe. We never get televised games. We're playing well. This will be a great time. It'll be a great time, right? It was an awful time, Mitch. Cam Newton got demolished in that game. He got injured, and he was literally never the same. That was the game that stopped Cam's career. Ever since that game, you can point to that week 10 game on November 8th against the Steelers. That was the moment Cam Newton stopped being the player that we knew and never recovered from the injuries that he sustained in that game. The Panthers completely collapsed after that. I walked out of that B-Dubs in the third quarter with shame on my face. I just felt like everyone was looking at me. I think people felt bad for me having to sit there, go to this restaurant and watch my team get embarrassed on national television. It is probably one of, if not the lowest moment as a Panthers fan. And I will always remember where I was when that happened. So thank you for making me relive that. I appreciate it.
I did not mean to strike an emotional chord with you. Wow.
You
just brought up the exact moment. I mean, that was incredible.
It really was. I can imagine sitting there in that Buffalo Wild Wings just hating my life, wondering what was happening.
I didn't think I was going to bring up.
You didn't know that was going to happen, but the minute you said what you said, I knew exactly where you were going, and I was like, God damn it, He's so right. It was awful.
It was yeah,
awful.
it's pretty
So,
terrible.
There you go.
Well, sorry I had to put you through that a second time. I
There's
didn't mean
my
to do that.
anecdote for the day.
There you go.
There you go.
So yeah, moving on to number 3, so Dallen can quit suffering.
Right.
We're gonna move to number 3. The 2011 Boston Red Sox. 9-game lead in the wild card race, and then absolutely went tumbling out of playoff contention after that. Going 7-20 in September. Now, you're the Red Sox. You're one of the premier organizations in all of professional sports. I mean, really, when you think about it, all of professional sports, the Red Sox, top of the list. Heads are going to roll. And this was also kind of to compound the fall of this. This was during the whole chicken and beer scandal that happened in the locker room with John Lackey, John Lester, and Josh Beckett. They're leaving games early to go drink beer and eat fried chicken and watch the rest of the game in the clubhouse. To compound all of that, it was just a complete organizational collapse by the Boston Red Sox. Not just an on-the-field product, but almost also internally, the Red Sox completely fell apart. So I'm going with the 2011 Red Sox, just purely based off not the on-field product, but kind of what imploded, how they imploded throughout the month of September that year.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, then you had the general manager, Theo Epstein, resigns after that season, after that collapse, and
Terry Francona left.
Yeah, and they won 90 games that year. It's, obviously they collapsed late, but yeah, the impact of all of that behind the scenes and what it meant moving forward. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, just a complete organizational collapse, not just an on-the-field product for the Boston Red Sox. Number 2 on the list, Alan. And this is where I get represented here. The 2012 Chicago Bears, their collapse. From 2000 to 2019, 46 teams had started a season 8-0 or 7-1. Only one team missed the playoffs after starting 8-0 or 7-1, and that was the 2012 Chicago Bears. They started 7-1, a defense that had forced 28 turnovers throughout the first 8 games. I mean, just an absolute stalwart of a defense. They proceeded after starting 8-1, dropping 4 of their next 5. They go to 8-5. They manage 2 late victories at the end of the year, but they lose a wild card tiebreaker to the Vikings, gets the Vikings into the playoffs. The Bears miss, and it ultimately wound up with the firing of Lovie Smith, one of my second favorite Bears coach of all time, Lovie Smith. And just, I mean, when you're held in that sort of regard, that sort of statistic of starting 8-0 or 7-1 and being the only team of the last 20 years to ever miss the playoff after starting like that, you definitely have to be on this list of one of the greatest sports collapses of all time.
Oh yeah. That's makes me feel better about my Panthers. So thank you.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, anything I could do to help, buddy. But number 1, and Dallen, this is the one where it wasn't a season-long one, but it's such a epic collapse. I have to mention it. 1996 Masters, Greg Norman. 6-shot lead going into the final round at Augusta. I mean, he is on cruise control here. Cruise control. He lost the lead by the 12th. While shooting a 78 in that final round. Nick Faldo wound up shooting a 76 and ultimately finished 5 strokes behind Nick Faldo after going in with a 6-stroke lead going in. So an 11-stroke swing in one round out of Greg Norman. You hate to see it for a guy that was, I don't even think he ever won a major. I think this is one of the great, he's on the list of like greatest players to never win a major. Absolutely had this thing locked up, but lost 11 strokes to Nick Faldo during the final round to lose the 96 Masters. Greg Norman, I mean, just I'm looking at a picture of him right now. The devastating look of hands on the knees, hands on your knees, hands on your knees. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Just devastating collapse. Greg Norman at the 96 Masters gets the #1 sports collapse of all time.
Yeah, that is a brutal one. That is really brutal. He was a 2-time major champion. I looked it up. He won the Open Championship twice. But obviously, when you're known for that collapse, it's like people forget you're a major champion because of how you collapsed in the Masters that in that tournament. That's rough. So
I mean, and get this. This was that was the third time he had finished second at the Masters.
Wow.
He finished top 5 at Augusta 8 times, never won the Masters.
Yeah.
I mean, just devastating. And then to blow it like that, I mean, just, it makes you sick for the guy. It makes you sick for him. But he is the worst collapse in sports history by far, Greg Norman.
There you go. Well, great top 5, Mitch. How about you run through the list one more time for the folks?
Yeah, number 5 on the list, the 1995 California Angels. Number 4, the 2018 Carolina Panthers. Number 3, the 2011 Boston Red Sox. Number 2, the 2012 Chicago Bears. And number 1, Greg Norman at the 1996 Masters.
Yeah, I love that. I know you were thinking seasons specifically. Obviously, you made an exception for Greg Norman. You could obviously throw like the Atlanta Falcons 28-3 Super Bowl if you were going to do a different sort of list. But I'm curious, what was there any honorable mentions or anything else you thought of when you were coming up with this?
Yeah, there was the 01-02 Milwaukee Bucks. They had some big names. I think they had Sam Cassell and Michael Redd. I'm spacing on the 3-point shooter.
Was it Ray Allen?
Ray Allen was on that team. I think they started off the year with like 35-24, wound up going like 15-32 to wind up the year, or whatever the numbers was, and wound up missing the playoffs by a game. Yeah. After sitting at like halfway point of the year, sitting like the 3 seed in the East. Big collapse for them. The 09 Broncos was another one. They started 6-0, wound up 8-8, missing the playoffs. The 08 Bucks, John Gruden's 08 Bucks, started 9-3, wound up missing the playoffs. Just some really, really bad performances here, but I was really more focused on the consequences of the collapse and how devastating they were at the end of it. And so I think that's what gave these instances the edge over those honorable mentions. We could go over the seasonal one there, the single game collapses. We could talk about the Oilers blowing the lead to the Bills in that 93 AFC divisional round. Plenty of other division, the 28-3 game. You could talk about all those, and that's a separate list, I think, by itself for another day.
Oh yeah.
But there's so many heartbreakers to go through.
Yeah, that's a listen, that's a great list. I mean, not great to be on the list, but a great list to share with the folks. So shout out, Mitch. We love a top 5 list.
No, thank you. Thank you, buddy. More to come. Well, Dallen, I think that's going to wrap up the first half of the show. When we come back, we'll have a little Kraken update for you. We're going to get into this campus tour, and then we are going to get into our Week 10 NFL Quick Picks. It's going to be loaded. You're not going to want to miss it, so stick around, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the second half of the Sports Hour with Mitch-Mo and Dallen. Thank you for sticking around with us through the break. Dallen, before we get into the campus tour, let's talk about our boys. Our boys up there in the PNW, the Kraken. The Kraken, we're okay. Things are okay. We're stable. We're not, the ship isn't going down yet. We're 4-6-3 throughout the first part of the year. 1-1-1. Nice round number for us. Nice round record for us over the last week. But Dallen, you have an interesting stat here that I think you should be pointing out here because Dallen, we just can't put the puck in the net.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're no hockey experts here. We are the official podcast of the Seattle Kraken, but we're not hockey experts and we're not going to pretend to. But I could do some math and I could do some numbers and I could kind of figure some things out. And I think I know our problem. We just need to score more goals.
Perfect. Let's do it.
It turns out, like in any sport, if you score more points than your opponent, you win. And yeah, obviously I'm joking a little bit about this, but that is a trend as I've looked at the Kraken this year. Because again, 4-6-3, as Mitch said, it's not bad. It's not great. We're not, in the playoff hunt at that point, but you're not bottom. We're not the San Jose Sharks. If you want to talk about a team having an absolute collapse this season, Mitch, the San Jose Sharks, I think they lost multiple games of like 8-0, like 8+ goals scored against. I mean, the Sharks are just,
they're bad.
I mean, they're doing the Philadelphia Sixers trust the process. They're impressing them with the tank job that they're doing there at San Jose. But Seattle for the Kraken this year, we just aren't scoring enough goals. We're 21st in goals allowed. Philip Grubauer has struggled a bit where last year that was one of the strengths was the goalkeeping for this team, but we are not helping them on the offensive side. 28th in goals scored per game. When you're 28th in goals scored and 21st in goals allowed, you're not going to win many games. That's just how it works. So the offense needs to pick it up. The goalkeeping, the defense has got to get better as well. But there's a glaring weakness so far this season, if you ask me, and it's certainly goals scored. Now, that was a major trend early in the season. It's something we talked about. They've gotten better as of late, more competitive in that sense, but we need to see continued improvement in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, by my math, that's fourth worst in goals per game. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Not good.
So, no, we're not in a good spot. Certainly seems like a step back for our boys. We had the playoff berth last year. There was some hope. And we told everyone, don't get too excited. It's about a gradual process for our Kraken. But this certainly feels like a step back. But we're not dead. Not a lot of puck left. A lot of puck left. So we'll keep you updated on the Kraken as the season goes on. Hopefully we'll have more exciting news about the Kraken moving forward as we go throughout the NHL season. Down, let's get into the campus tour because college football had another banger of a week. And let's start with our Week 10 recap. And let's start in the Pac-12. UW getting it done over USC and Arizona upsetting UCLA. And I think that we'll get into Arizona, UCLA here in just a second. But this just solidifies to me with this UW win over USC that I don't know why I still held out hope about USC, that maybe they were just going through a tough stretch.
Yeah.
They're pretenders. And we all got duped. We all got duped by USC thinking that they could somehow turn this defense around and that Lincoln Riley could somehow get this team pointed in the right direction to be a serious college football playoff contender. We all got duped. USC is a pretender. They're nowhere near, dare I say, nowhere near top 25 consideration for me. I mean, just poor performances out of USC in these losses. And I mean, you're matching up against UW, who is one of the best teams in the country. This just solidifies it for me. I mean, we talked about the Pac-12 cannibalizing itself. It's very clear, though, that USC was not going to be a part of that conversation. They're just going to get cannibalized by everyone else. that being Washington and Oregon. USC pretenders. We all got duped.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is, I mean, it's just, that's all it comes down to for USC. I mean, this offense is more than capable of competing. And we knew the defense was bad last year. That was the glaring problem with USC last year. And as you said, we expected some level of improvement in some regard, and it got worse. And it led to Alex Grinch, the DC, fired this week following the loss to Washington, where he gave up 52 points. They didn't get to 60. I didn't call it. I was hoping. I was holding out hope at the end. I was like, oh, come on, get that 60 mark. They didn't. But yeah, USC, just that defense is not competitive at all. And when you're in shootouts every single game with the poorest defense, you're not going to be able to compete. It's a shame for the offense. It's a shame for Caleb Williams and Marshawn Lloyd and all the talent that's on that offense, because they should have been more competitive this year. But the defense let them down, and we'll see when Lincoln Riley brings in a new DC next year, who they bring in and what kind of impact they has, because he needs to turn that around or he's going to lose his job. So, dire times in USC. They got to figure some things out this offseason for sure.
Yeah, I mean, very dire times for USC. They got to figure it out on the defensive side of the ball. Selfish hope. Matt Eberflus gets fired from Chicago. He goes to USC, becomes the defensive coordinator, and we bring in Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Selfish hope. Selfish hope.
Write it in.
Probably not going to happen, but I could hope, right?
Yeah.
Arizona upsetting UCLA though was another big deal here, and I think that UCLA, they're one of those teams just kind of hung on by a thread the entire time to be a top 25 ranked team, and come to find out that they're good, but they're not top 25 good, and I think that this loss to Arizona kind of answered those questions, and Arizona's a good team as well.
Yeah, the Wildcats beating number 19 UCLA 27-10. UCLA had been the best defense in the Pac-12 this season statistically in Pac-12 play. They had been the best defense. It was the reason why they were ranked top 25, because the offense was pretty rough for UCLA. So surprising to see Arizona put up over 400 yards on the day, score 27 points to get the victory. Noah Fafita, I mean, what a gem that Jed Fish has found himself there. Jaden DeLora, the starter to start the season, played really well. Fafita's come in and played that much better. He's really been a true revelation for the Wildcats, and has them 6-3 now with this big win. I believe, were they ranked in the college football playoff rankings? I got to pull up the picture real quick that I had of it. I don't remember if they were ranked, but certainly, in that consideration. But I mean, this is an Arizona team that was really down bad not that long ago.
They were ranked number 21.
Number 21. So,
yep.
Yeah, Arizona, impressive win, impressive what they've done this year. And listen, I just want to say, Mitch, who did we have in the Pac-12 as the overachieving team this year? Arizona. Yep. You and I both picked the Wildcats to overachieve this year. They're already bowl eligible and looking to take even more away out of this Pac-12 race. So love to see it.
So, I mean, we're geniuses is basically
you said it, not me, but I will agree. So,
I mean, I can be bullish on ourselves, right? I can be bullish for us.
Yeah, I like it.
Dallen, moving on to the Big 12, a bittersweet moment here. The last bedlam. The last bedlam. OK State upsets Oklahoma in the final bedlam game. They get that one done. Of course, Texas survives against K-State. But really, the news here is the final game in bedlam. Number 22, Oklahoma State getting it done over number 9, Oklahoma, 27-24. I did get to watch that game. A fantastic game. And it feels like a fitting end to this. You want to see the competitive nature of these two in-state rivals clash. But I think what's most fitting about this is that over the history of this game, there's been so many great moments, and to see an upset be the penultimate moment for this matchup, for this rivalry, really seems to be fitting for this one. I love that the Pokes pulled this one out. I picked the Pokes to win this game.
You did.
And this just seemed fitting that OK State walks out with the final win in Bedlam. Not to say that it's not going to happen again down the road. Of course, out of conference scheduling could match them up in future years, but it's a little bit of a bittersweet moment to see such a historic matchup come to an end here this last weekend.
Yeah, and nice for Cowboys fans to send Oklahoma back into the SEC with a big L. And on top of that, Mitch, knocking them out of the college football playoff race, right? Because with two losses on the season,
you're gone. See ya.
Oklahoma is not going to have a case. So what a way to sort of send them packing there for Oklahoma State. Thanks for nothing. See you later. Have fun in the SEC. You're the new Nebraska. And oh, by the way, you're not making the college football playoffs. So yeah, I mean, impressive. And listen, I want to give a lot of credit to Oklahoma State. It was very early in this season where many thought they were just absolutely poised for an awful season. They did not look impressive in their opening wins against Central Arkansas and Arizona State, and then lost 33-7 to South Alabama. And after that game, it was like, is Mike Gundy going to keep his job after this year? Is Oklahoma State going to win a game in conference play? And here they are now, 7-2, top 15 ranked. Just absolute turnaround. We shouldn't have doubted the Cowboys. We shouldn't have doubted Mike Gundy. And he has this team in position to make the Big 12 championship game. Texas, Oklahoma State, both 5-1, both at the top of the Big 12. That would be the conference championship game right now. So a lot of credit needs to go to that team and that coaching staff and the way that they've bounced back after a really rough way to start their season. So big win.
I love that. Everyone started to come after Mike Gundy because he's a man. He's 40.
Yeah,
so like I love that
he could take
came after Mac. Yeah, he could take it. He's a man. He's 40.
Exactly.
So but no, a great turnaround. Alan Bowman, by the way, didn't throw a touchdown pass in this one, but 28 for 42 and 334. A great performance of the air for Alan Bowman in this Oklahoma State game. Fantastic matchup. And a good send-off for the Bedlam matchup. But when we talk about Texas, Dallen, holding on against Kansas State, another very close matchup, a overtime matchup, 33-30, getting it done over Kansas State, keeping their playoff hopes alive. I think Kansas State's a good team, but Dallen, it just doesn't feel like this is Texas's year to be in a college football playoff if you're barely holding on against Kansas State, who is a great team, but not a top 15, not a top 10 team in the country. It just feels like Texas is going to be a great team, but not a college football playoff contender for me.
Yeah, especially without Quinn Ewers, right? And I think that's sort of the glaring thing here. Malik Murphy, better in this game than maybe he was against BYU, but not great. You win this game 33-30 in overtime. Meanwhile, the Texas Longhorns was able to amass 478 total yards in the game, 230 rushing yards, average 6 yards per rush. They outpaced them by over 100 yards. And you ask yourself, well, how is this even that close of a game? Texas is 2 of 15 on third down, 10 penalties and 3 turnovers. That's going to do it. That's sloppy. That's really ugly.
Really sloppy.
And so Texas is lucky they won this game, because if they lose this game, they're out of the college football playoff with 2 losses after the loss to Kansas last week. So Texas survives this. For the moment, they stay alive in the playoff race. They'll have TCU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech to wrap up the season. Not the toughest of opponents, but they're not pushovers in the Big 12 either. And considering, what we've seen from Texas, I don't know how confident I feel like in them closing out the season without a loss. So if they were to get to the Big 12 championship with the 1 loss to Oklahoma, and if they were to win the Big 12 as a 1-loss team, they would certainly have a case. They'd need some help to get in there, but not an impressive win by Texas. If anything, they just kind of barely survived what should have been an upset loss.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side too, and I think we'd be remiss if we did not mention this guy for having a very solid performance. Will Howard had a great night under center, 26 for 41, 327 and 4. I mean, just a great night to keep them in that conversation of winning this game against Texas. Like I said, Kansas State, a very tough team, but Texas eking that one out. And I mean, now serious questions have to come up about Texas, though. Are they the real contenders that we think they are? Arrows point towards no right now, I think, for both of us, after that performance against Kansas State, even though they got the dub. Dallen, SEC, Georgia and Alabama, they take care of business. They get it done over Missouri and LSU, respectively. Alabama getting it done 42-28 over LSU. Georgia getting the job done over Missouri 30-21. I don't know what to take away from the SEC out of this one. I don't know. I'm a little confused because I want to say that Alabama looks like the best team in the SEC West right now. I really do, but I don't feel confident in saying that. But they just beat LSU kind of in a sloppy fashion. They're one of the more penalized teams in the nation, especially on the offensive line. God damn it, that offensive line is so bad in Alabama. But we had a good night. They gave Jalen Milroe plenty of time to get the job done. They get the job done. But Georgia and Missouri, a closer game, and Missouri seems to hang around with the number 2 team in the nation. I'm just a little bit confused on what to take away from these two matchups.
Yeah, I mean, I think the score on the Georgia-Missouri game looks a little closer. It's 24-13 going into the fourth quarter. And, Missouri, I think, gave them some fight there. Credit to Missouri. I think that's one of those weird teams that's like, how good are they actually, right? Like, I know they're 7-1, but, like, you know, how good are they? And, I mean, pretty impressive showing to hang around in a game and at least be competitive with Georgia in this one. And, LSU on the other side, I mean, that was just a dominant Alabama offense in that game, and Jalen Milroe was on one, so that was really impressive for Alabama. For Georgia, they're finally facing some tests. They passed one; they'll have more to come. I'm not totally convinced on Georgia, and frankly, I'm not convinced on Alabama either. They're looking better than they did earlier in the season, and that's exactly what you want to see from the Crimson Tide. But I just hope we get these two teams in the SEC championship game, because then it's anyone's game, and I can't wait to watch that. So we'll see if we get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago. Our only hope now is that we get in to play Georgia in the SEC championship game. Winner of that goes to the college football playoff. I mean, that's the way it goes. So I think that we being the Crimson Tide, me being a Crimson Tide fan, we put ourselves in a good position by getting this win over LSU, because darn it, we weren't going to have any path if we lose this game to LSU. So
no doubt.
Big win for both Georgia and Alabama to keep their playoff contention hopes alive. Of course, Georgia is securely in it right now, but that will remain to be seen when we get to the SEC championship game. Dallen, moving forward, reactions to the college football playoff ranking. Not a whole lot of movement. So maybe not a whole lot to react to here.
Yeah, no, not really much. The top 8 remains the same and in the exact same order. And to remind you, listening, in that order from 1 to 8, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State. Those are the 4 in the playoff at the moment. Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, round that out. Those are the 8, I think, in the most contention. At 9, you have Ole Miss. They're going to play Georgia this week. A win for Ole Miss over number two Georgia would certainly give the Rebels a strong case there. But outside of that, I think everybody else is really on the outside looking in, especially this late in the season. We don't see many teams outside of the top 5 or 6 from this point make the playoff. It's very rare. So those are kind of the 8 teams you're looking at right now. Outside of that, Oklahoma obviously falls quite a bit. They fall to 17 in the rankings after their loss. Arizona, Iowa, and North Carolina, join the rankings at 21, 22, and 24, respectively. And then Tulane, the highest ranked group of 5 team right now at number 23. Air Force got upset. They were in the rankings. They are out. So Tulane, the only group of 5 team remaining. And they would slot into that New Year's 6 berth as they did last year. So we'll see if anyone can shake them in that regard, because that's the other thing to watch here with the rankings, that highest group of 5 team that's going to earn the New Year's 6 bowl bid.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to see Air Force get knocked out. I really did. I loved that they were in the top 25, and I hate to see that James Madison got bumped too. They're not in that top 25 as well. But good for Tulane getting in 8-1. Dallen, I do have a quick question though here. Outside of that top 8, looking through that like 10 to 15 range, is there any of those teams that you feel like might put themselves in the conversation moving forward as far as college football playoffs go?
I think that's really tough. Like I said, I think outside of that top 8, it's going to be really, really hard for anybody to make a strong, compelling case to be a playoff team. And they'll certainly need a lot of help. The one team that I sort of feel like maybe could get there, you have Penn State at 10. They're going to play Michigan this week, right? They lost to Ohio State, but if they were to beat Michigan and then get to a Big Ten champion, Penn State, if they were to turn it around with one loss, they could do it. But Louisville at one loss with an easy ACC schedule, and Florida State in the ACC championship game, a top 4 team that they could knock off for their signature win. The problem for the Cardinals, Mitch, is that awful loss to Pitt. You cannot lose to Pitt. If you would have lost to a ranked Duke team, if you would have lost to another good team, and that was your lone loss on the season, I think Louisville would have a much stronger case. But the fact that that loss came against an unranked Pitt team that was just not good, that is going to sting, and the committee will not let them in as a result. But that's the one team I think would have the strongest argument if they were to win the ACC, one-loss team. They'd have a pretty strong case.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Outside of that top 8, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough.
Yeah.
So, but glad to have that insight from you, Dallen.
What about you?
I mean, I have to go with Louisville as well. I mean, just you're a Brom guy. I'm a Brom guy now. Like I'm all in on Louisville. But I do think that there's a path where Penn State gets in. It's more murky than it is for Louisville. There's really no path where Ole Miss gets in. There's no path. Well, as great as they've been, I don't know if there's much
this week. And that's where I don't know on the standings. We'll have to check this because they do play Georgia. Now, Georgia isn't in the same division in the SEC, and the SEC still does divisions, East versus West. And Ole Miss does trail by a game to Alabama, and Alabama does have the tiebreaker over Ole Miss. So they would need the Tide to lose 2 games regardless to even get to the SEC championship game. And that would include Ole Miss having to beat number 2 Georgia. So, yeah, I agree with you. They could get to 11-1, but they might not even make the conference championship game. And then if you don't even make the conference championship game, what kind of case do you have? So
yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
But yeah, I'm on board with you that it's Louisville, and then maybe Penn State is the sneaky sleeper that might get in on technicalities pretty much. So I'm on board with you. Dallen, MVP of the week. You're bringing the MVP of the week this week. So who you got? Yeah, I am. Listen, we talked about the Huskies putting up a 52 spot on the USC Trojans. It's a good day for you when you get to go against the USC defense, and it was a good day for Dylan Johnson. This Huskies team, not known for the rushing attack, not known for running it. They're like the top passing team in college football. They pass it more than anybody. Michael Penix, all those wide receivers, that's what they do. But it was Dylan Johnson, the running back
for Washington that had the biggest impact in the biggest game in the 52-42 win on the road at USC. 26 carries, 256 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That is good for 9.8 yards per carry. The kid was averaging a first down every time he touched it, and he touched it 26 times on the ground. So, I mean,
Christmas.
4 touchdowns. Dylan Johnson, have yourself a day. MVP of the week.
Love it. Love that pick for MVP of the week. Down upset of the week. Army getting it done over Air Force, 23-3.
Yeah.
Big. Air Force was favored -17.5. Home favorites, and they get blown out.
Yeah, and Air Force was a lot of people's trendy pick to be that group of 5 New Year's 6 team, right? They were ranked number 25 in the college football playoff rankings last week, those initial rankings, undefeated on the season up until this point against an Army team that was like 3 wins. This was not a good Army team. And to just get dominated in that fashion by Army at home, I mean, it's just, wow, what a terrible loss for Air Force. They could still win the Mountain West. They likely will win the Mountain West. But 11-1 with a loss to Army on your resume is going to hurt when Tulane can go on to win the AAC, when James Madison, if they could get the waiver approval from the NCAA, which they've submitted again to be bowl eligible, they could potentially be the group of 5 representative if that waiver gets approved. Probably not going to happen. But yeah, the Air Force should have and could have arguably been the favorite coming into this week. But after that loss, yeah, you could probably count that goodbye.
You know, that sucks because, like, I love seeing a military academy doing well, and they seem to cannibalize each other. Navy beats Army, Army beats Navy, Navy beats Air Force, Army beats Air Force, Air Force beats Army. I mean, it's endless with these guys, but yeah, tough look for Air Force. I think they really do have a good program going forward right now. I think they really do have a really good program. Just a tough loss to Army.
Yeah.
Dallen, Heisman watch week 10, little bit of shuffling and a new name that's going to pop up in this top 5.
Yeah, Heisman watch for this week in this order at number 1 remains the same. Michael Penix Jr. at the top of the list. Bo Nix, the quarterback from Oregon. Number 2, Jaden Daniels, quarterback from LSU. Number 3, Caleb Williams, quarterback for USC. Number 4, and for the first time on our list, Jordan Travis, quarterback for Florida State at number 5. We dropped Dylan Gabriel from the list. I believe he was he number 3 last week?
Number 4. He was number
4. He drops out after the loss to Oklahoma State, and I think that 5th spot is up for grabs. I think you could mention a number of players I feel like I'd be comfortable putting in there, but I like Travis, one, because Florida State is undefeated on the season. They're number 4 in the playoff rankings, and so leading his team to those numbers, it deserves some credit, but he's having himself a very nice season. He doesn't have the passing attempts, the numbers, like a lot of those guys at the top. He's under 2,500 passing yards on the season, though he is averaging 8.5 yards per attempt, 19 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. He's added 7 touchdowns on the ground and completing 64% of his passes. So he's efficient. He's not putting up the gaudy numbers that you'd want to see from a Heisman. And listen, he was my Heisman pick before the year. I'm in on Florida State. I was in on them as a playoff team, and I picked him to win the Heisman. And I don't think he will unless he has an incredible last 3 weeks. But I think at this point, he's warranted to be considered there at number 5. I also think, Dylan Gabriel, you could put him in there. I'd be okay with that. JJ McCarthy, if you want to talk about top quarterbacks and efficiency, I mean, you think you could make a case for him. And what about the non-quarterback that we added to our top 10 little pool of players this week?
Yeah, my back-to-back player of the week, Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
I mean, out of OK State. I mean, this guy's incredible. But, and you made a great point when we were talking about this and kind of talking ourselves through a top 5. You got to be in that 2,000-yard conversation to really be in the Heisman conversation. You really got to be there. Probably, and I would argue that probably that 1,800 to 2,000. Like,
sure.
you just and a prolific scorer. I mean, you got to be getting, 15 to 20 touchdowns to be in that conversation. A very important part of that offense, probably just outside that Heisman watch for us right now. But I feel pretty confident about this top 5 that we got. Jordan Travis is a very integral part of that Florida State offense, having himself a great year. Even though that USC is outside of the top 25, Caleb Williams, he's the defending Heisman Trophy winner. He's putting up outstanding numbers, so he still has to be kind of in that consideration. But those top 3, man, I think it's a 3-horse race right now in my mind with Penix, Nix, and Daniels. They just seem to be really putting together the best years that they possibly could. And even though Daniels gets the loss to Alabama, it's going to be it might even be a Penix Nix race by the end of next week.
Yeah.
I mean,
I do feel like Daniels has put up incredible numbers and he deserves credit. And that's why he should be, I think, number 3 this season because of what he's done. But the fact that his team is not winning and, there's some guys that are having really good seasons and teams that are having really good seasons in Oregon and Washington at top. I do think it's kind of a Penix Nix sort of race almost at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll hope that we get a rematch of those guys in the Pac-12 championship game to, as we, I think, talked about last week, maybe for a chance to stake their claim on the award with a win in that game. So I did want to mention this as well. We talked about Ollie Gordon at running back. The last time we had a running back finish in the top 5 of Heisman voting, 2020 with Najee Harris. And I'm going to give you the stat line for Najee Harris this year. Again, he was 5th in voting. Devontae Smith won it this year. Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Kyle Trask ahead of him. But these were the numbers for Najee Harris. 251 attempts, 1,466 yards, averaged 5.8 yards per carry with 26 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So you can get under 1,500 yards if you score 25 times. Then, I think that'll help. So you've either got to have a lot of touchdowns or you've got to hit, like you said, 18 to 2,000 rushing yards on the season to really be in that consideration.
Yeah. That's not Phil Klein for him, but I'm going to be excited to watch him. And he's still one of my dark horses. I'll put him as dark horse for me.
Absolutely.
So,
Love it. Okay. Games to watch this week, Mitch. The last thing to wrap up the campus tour here. You had a great week in the picks, Mitch. A clean sweep for Mitch. A perfect 7 points on the week. I had 4 points myself, thanks to the Washington lock. So totals now on the season, I'm at 29 points. Mitch is at 23 points. Narrowing the gap a little bit. We've got a couple weeks left. And of course, conference championship weekend with the super lock, then anything can happen. It's anyone's game at that point. So this was an important week for you. Well done getting 5 for 5 on the picks.
Yeah, that felt pretty good. That felt pretty damn good. And I closed a gap that I very sorely needed to close. So glad that we got that done. Let's get into this first game. Number 3, Michigan, 9-0. Number 3, Michigan. They're going to head over to Happy Valley. Happy Valley. That's what it's called. Happy Valley to take on the number 10 Penn State Nittany Lions. Ranked number 10. Michigan right now at -4.5 road favorites. I know the cheating scandals have been plaguing Michigan. Connor Stallion resigns. They don't have their spy anymore. I still think Michigan is the better team than Penn State. And I'm going to say that Michigan's going to get this one done. I'm not going to lock it, but I'd like Michigan over Penn State in this matchup.
Okay. Yeah. I like Michigan in this game as well. I'm not a big believer in Penn State. I know they kind of hung tough in that Ohio State loss, but I don't know. I've never really been convinced on this team. Anybody in the Big Ten, frankly, outside of those top 2 teams, it's like, how good are they even when you get to play Minnesota and Northwestern and Illinois and Indiana every year? Like, how good are you? I mean, I don't know. But Michigan at -4.5, Mitch. I think I have to lock this. I'm going to lock
Wow.
Michigan at -4.5. It's a weird line because it has to be a touchdown, right? We have to look for like a touchdown here. It can't be just a field goal at the end.
Yeah.
You know, we need something significant, but I have trust in the Wolverines in the midst of this scandal and on the road at Penn State. They'll get it done, and they'll get it done enough to get that lock at -4.5. So I will lock Michigan on that one.
I like it.
Another top 10 matchup this week, Mitch. Number 9 Ole Miss, 8-1 on the season, headed to Georgia. 9-0 Georgia, number 2 in the college football playoff rankings. Georgia favored at home in this one, -10.5. They survived their first maybe real test of the season against Missouri. They also get to host this game, which certainly helps. I think Ole Miss is a much better team than what we saw out of Missouri, but I will take Georgia in this one, though I do think that this is a one-score game. I think this is a one-score game. Maybe it's even a field goal win for Georgia. I think Ole Miss gives them everything. This is the toughest task, the toughest challenge ahead for Georgia before the SEC championship game is this game right here. It's a must-win. Ole Miss is going to give them hell, but Georgia will get it done.
Yeah, this is a tasty line to me. Tasty. Love this. -10.5. I'm going to have to pass on it, though. I will take Georgia, as I really want to take Ole Miss in this one because I think Georgia's going to lose a game somewhere. This is probably their best opportunity to lose a game. But I'm going to take Georgia because I think that's the safe pick because I need points, Dallen. I need points. So I'm going to take Georgia in this one. No lock. No lock.
All right.
Dallen, following that, a Pac-12 matchup. Number 18, Utah. Traveling over to UW to take on the Huskies. Number 5 ranked Washington. 9-0. Right now, Washington favored, -9.5 at home. Home favorites. Another one that it's tasty. It's a tasty line. I don't know what it is about these bigger spreads that feel so good. I'm going to take Washington. And I'm not going to lock again. I'm not going to lock again. I want to. These last 2 games, I really want to lock, but I can't do it. I have to take Washington outright.
Yeah. You know, this is an interesting one. This Utah team that upset USC, looked like it had some momentum, absolutely collapsed against Oregon. I mean, nowhere close to competitive in that game. Bounced back and just beat up on ASU last week, who is not a good team.
No, not a good team.
But an impressive thing to see from this Utah squad to lose the way they did to Oregon and bounce back and win big over Arizona State. So I don't really know what to make of this Utah team. The defense is tough. The offense just cannot compete. The offense just cannot compete with this Washington offense. Even against a good defense, Washington's going to score 30. I don't believe Utah can score 30. So I will take Washington in this game. But I think this will be a tough one. I could just see the Utes are not an easy out. Utah's not an easy out. So I could just see this being a challenging win for Washington.
You know what the Utes are? The Utes are the poster child for spoiler teams. They're going to ruin your season at some point. They're just like, they're that competitive enough, but not a top tier team. They're the poster child for that.
Yeah. I like it. All right. SEC matchup, Mitch, another one, another ranked SEC matchup. Number 13, Tennessee, 7-2 on the season. Headed to Missouri to take on the number 14 ranked Missouri Tigers. 7-2 on the season as well. Tennessee favored on the road in this one, -1. It's the tightest line we've got this week by far at just 1 point. This is, I mean, the line represents it. It feels like a toss-up game in a lot of ways. I don't really know what to make of this Missouri team, as I said, and Tennessee has been good, but not spectacular this year. They haven't been overly impressive. 2 losses coming at Florida and at Alabama, but no no win to speak of this year. I mean, the best win they have is over Kentucky. So what to make of this Tennessee team? How good are they? How good is Missouri? I don't know, Midge. I don't know. So I'm taking Tennessee in this one. Just because I just don't know if I could believe in Missouri as a good football program. I don't know. It just feels weird to pick them. So I'm going to go with Tennessee.
I wish you didn't do that.
I bet you did.
I wish you didn't do that. I wish you went Missouri so you made this pick easier on me. I need points. Give me a Missouri.
Okay.
Give me Missouri.
I mean, it's a toss-up game. This seems like a good game to pick the toss-up, right?
Yeah, really. Yeah, it does. It's a really good toss-up game. No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
A Pac-12 matchup. 7-3 USC, unranked USC, going to number 6 Oregon. Oregon keeping their playoff hopes alive by continuing to win. They're 8-1. Oregon right now favored -15. Give me the Ducks and lock it in.
Wow.
I am going to take the biggest line that we got this week, and I have all the faith in the world that this USC defense continues to collapse and be bad, and Oregon has a field day against USC. In fact, let me stamp it down now. You wanted to see 60 plus points last week. It's going over 60 this week.
This is the week for it.
This is the week that it goes over 60. Oregon puts up 60 plus on USC and covers the spread. Give me Oregon with the lock.
Wow, what a rough stretch for USC. Fire the DC and things get worse. I love it. I mean, I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit for this. I mean, this USC team, we saw this defense is awful. And the personnel isn't going to change week by week, even if they have a new DC. So I am going to pick Oregon in this game. Very bold to take the 15 line. I love that. But we need points. This is the season. You need a bold move to make a move. You hit that lock, those couple extra points there, that makes a big difference. So I like it.
The question is going to be, should I just taken it in the Missouri-Tennessee game or the Georgia-Ole Miss game? That's going to be the question. I mean, that'll be where it is.
We'll find out, right, on Saturday. Yeah. But again, coming down to the wire, 6 points separate us in these picks. And I mean, we're in week 11 of the college football season. So just 3 weeks of regular season play left, and then conference championship weekend. So winding down here, the college football season.
Yes. Love it. Dallen, that is going to wind up our campus tour for the week. And it's time to get into a segment that we've done since day one here at the podcast. Our quick picks for week 10 in the NFL. Look, your boy had another bad week, 5-9 last week. God, that's terrible. I think I've had 10 winners in the last 2 weeks. It's terrible. But Dallen, you wind up 9-5, and you jump out to a commanding 9-game lead over me in the quick picks. I'm right now sitting at 77-59. You are at 86-50. I got to make some moves. It's teetering on like play it safe, but also make some moves to pick some upsets here. And I don't know on some of these games which way to go, but I've made my picks already, but I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble right now, Dallen.
It's a tricky spot to be in. We are halfway through the season, so you got a lot of time left. That's the good news for us. But
yeah,
you don't want to let this thing get to 12, 15 games, or else that's going to be, a huge deficit to try to overcome. So you got to keep things tight and start chipping away a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see if you can turn it around this week. I believe in you.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I hope I can. Dallen, let's kick this week off with Thursday night football. And Dallen, it is, I believe, only the second time in podcast history. It is the Sports Hour Bowl.
It
The
is.
Sports Hour Bowl, the Carolina Panthers. They are headed over to the Windy City to take on the Chicago Bears. Right now, the Bears favored -3.5. And Dallen, let's get it out of the way.
This is just hot garbage. Straight hot garbage. You're a garbage person.
It's not garbage game of the week in our minds, though. This is the best game of the week because me and Dallen get to face off head to head. We realize that our teams are bad, but you know what? We get to take pride in our teams. And Dallen, you got to be crazy if you think I'm taking your Panthers over my Chicago Bears. Bear down. Give me the Bears in this matchup at home against the Carolina Panthers.
Listen, if you're a smart NFL fan, you are nowhere near Amazon Prime tomorrow night when this game is going on. You've made plans. You're spending time with your significant other. You're visiting a relative. You're doing something more meaningful and impactful than watching this awful football game. But God damn it, you know who will be there? Mitch-Mo and I.
Yeah, that's right,
because
baby.
this game means everything to me. Thursday night football, and the Panthers are getting it done. Win 2 on the year. Bryce Young versus Tyson Bagent. Are you kidding me? Get the hell out of here. Give me the Panthers.
The football might be so bad that our TVs spontaneously combust into flames. But you're damn right you and I will be turning into that one.
Not doctor
You're damn
recommended, but Sports Hour recommended for Thursday
That's
night.
right.
So there you go. Following that, Mitch, why are we subjecting the poor people of Germany to this game, the international game this week? And it's the Indianapolis Colts 4-5 on the season versus the 2-7 New England Patriots. I mean, listen, I love the Colts. They've been fun. We talked about how good their offense is. This Patriots team is awful. Indy favored -1.5 in this one. I'll take the Colts, and I will apologize. After the great matchup, not a great game per se, but a great matchup last week with the Dolphins and Chiefs, to then give them Colts Patriots, that's kind of mean. I don't know. We could have done better.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we just teased him a little bit that like the whole league is good, you know?
And then you give them this.
Take the Colts, lay the number, -1.5. Colts all day long. I like the Colts in this one. Following that down, we're going back stateside for our morning Sunday slate. We got the Cleveland Browns. They're heading over to Baltimore, Maryland to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Right now, the Ravens favored -6. And this one, tight game. That Cleveland defense we talked about earlier, very, very good. I think the Baltimore does get it done by a field goal. I like Baltimore over Cleveland.
Yeah, Baltimore has been on a roll after, a pretty slow start on the season for them. They've really come into their own in these last few weeks. Some dominant wins. Baltimore's been very impressive. I will take them to win this game at home. Should be a close one. Cleveland, divisional matchup. Should be a good game. One of the better games this week, but I will take Baltimore. Following that, Mitch, speaking of great games, the San Francisco 49ers looking to bounce back after a rough stretch, and they've got to head to the swamps of Jacksonville to take on Trevor Lawrence and the 6-2 Jags. San Francisco road favorites at -3. Give me Jacksonville to get it done. Are we going to start calling for things to happen in San Francisco if they go to 5-4? We'll see, but I'm taking Jacksonville at home in this one.
In the words of the great Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I have to take the San Francisco 49ers on the road to get this one done. I think they have a good bounce back week with a solid win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. In a close one, Jacksonville, not any discredit to them, but I think San Francisco bounces back in a big way, gets this one over the Jags. Give me the Niners. Following that game, the Green Bay Packers, the rat people of the Midwest, they are heading over to the Steel City to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers right now favored -3.5. Steelers, they've been outscored on the year, but they have been convincing at home. Give me that towel. I'm going to start waving that terrible towel. Give me the Steelers at home over the Packers. Packers don't look very good right now. They look bad.
Yeah, Packers have really hit a rough stretch after it felt like they looked, at least above average to good to start this season. Things have really taken a turn for the worse, but I do expect Green Bay to turn it around at some point, and this Pittsburgh team, especially offensively, is not convincing in the slightest. So I'm going to take Green Bay in a matchup of classic NFL franchises here, huh? Packers and Steelers. I love that. I'll take Green Bay on the road to get it done. Following that, Mitch, the New Orleans Saints are headed to Minnesota to take on Josh Dobbs and the Vikings. He is Geno Smithing his career, Mitch, and you love to see it. Comes in for Jaron Hall, gets knocked out with a concussion last week and leads the Vikings to a win. He doesn't even know the playbook. He's never snapped with these guys. They're practicing cadence on the sideline so the offensive linemen know what the hell he's doing out there. It's incredible what they were able to do last week, and now he's the guy headed into this game. Minnesota rolls to a victory. Give me the Vikings.
Give me Minnesota. I mean, Josh Dobbs in the huddle going, hey, 74. What's 17's name? Yeah, it's 17. Okay, I need you to do that over there, okay? Like, he doesn't know anyone in that offense. He doesn't know anyone, and he's still going to get this job done. Give me Minnesota over the Saints at home. Love the Vikes in this one at plus 2.5. Following that game, the Houston Texans, they're headed over to Cincinnati to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals right now favored at -7. Bengals, they're rolling as of late. They have found their stride. One of the more dangerous teams in the AFC, I think, right now at this moment. Give me the Bengals over the Texans. CJ Stroud plays well, suffers a tough loss, though. Bengals by 1.5. Give me Cincinnati.
Yeah, I'll take Cincinnati as well in this one. They need to keep things rolling, and especially, as I mentioned earlier, figuring out this offense, getting points on the board. Good week to do it against Houston, who has not a great defense. Cincinnati wins big in this one at home. Last early morning slate game, Mitch, the Tennessee Titans at 3-5 headed to Tampa Bay to take on Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, also 3-5 on the season. Bucks favored -1 in this game. It's kind of a toss-up. I don't really know where to go here, so I picked the home team. Baker's actually played pretty good this year. He's been very impressive in Tampa Bay. I got to eat some crow because I was very mean to him in our QB tiers this offseason. I was absolutely bottom barrel on Baker. Like, what are we doing? Why are we bringing this guy in to be quarterback? But he's held it down this year. He's actually been pretty good for Tampa Bay, and a lot of respect, a lot of credit needs to go to Baker for this one, and he gets the win on Sunday.
Yeah, I like Baker and the Bucks in this one at home. Give me the Bucks. This one, you talk about Geno Smithing your career. Baker Mayfield might be doing that right in front of our very eyes right now. I like the Buccaneers at home to get this one done. Down, starting off the afternoon slate, the Detroit Lions. They're heading over to the City of Angels to take on the Los Angeles Chargers, where Detroit will somehow still have home field advantage over the Chargers. Right now, Detroit favored -3. Give me the fighting Dan Campbells. Chargers, they are decimated at wide receiver. Decimated. I think their best wide receivers right now starting this week are Josh Palmer and Jalen Guyton. I mean, just terrible right now in the passing game. Justin Herbert has no one to throw to outside of Austin Eckler. Give me the Lions on the road over the Chargers.
Yeah, the fighting Dan Campbells get it done on the road. They outnumber the Chargers fans probably 2-1, even though there's not a lot of Detroit Lions fans around. Still more than the Chargers. I will take the Lions on the road in this one. Following that, Mitch, the Atlanta Falcons with the new starting quarterback Taylor Heineke headed to Arizona to take on the 1-8 Cardinals. Will Kyler Murray play in this game? They've teased he could be available. We shall see. We don't know for sure yet. Maybe that affects your pick. Maybe it doesn't. Atlanta favored -1.5 on the road. I will go with the Falcons. Taylor Heineke bringing a level of consistency to this offense that Desmond Ridder was not able to help them get the dub on the road.
Yeah, if you're a betting man or woman, make sure to put this game in at the very last moment if you're betting on this game, because who knows what Kyler Murray's status is going to be if he's playing or not. If he's not playing, this should be the easiest underdog you should take all week long, and I'm going to do that right now. Falcons. Give me the Falcons +5, +1.5 over the Cardinals. I like the Falcons in this game. Following that, the New York Giants, they're leaving the Big Apple to head over to the Lone Star State to take on the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World. Dallas right now favored -16. Massive line.
Is this
massive
college?
Line?
You don't see lines like that in the NFL.
But I'll tell you what, with Tommy DeVito being the starting quarterback for the New York Giants, things are not looking good for New York. I got to take the Cowboys in a big way. Cowboys by 1 million. Give me the boys.
The real question is would you lock them to cover that -16 number? Because I think I would.
Absolutely.
I think I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I will also take the Cowboys in this one. Tough scenes for Brian Daboll and this Giants team, especially after signing Daniel Jones to that contract. He's injured. He's out. It's not a good season for New York. It'll be a messy offseason, that's for sure. Following that, Mitch, Washington, the Commanders headed to Washington, the state, to take on the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks favored -6.5 in this one. Give me the Seahawks at home to get it done. Washington, a fun, competitive team. Sam Howell just tossing the ball all over the field. He's second in passing yards in the NFL this year. But this is not a winning team, unfortunately. So give me Seattle.
Yeah, Sam Howell also first in completions and first in attempts. A guy that we didn't talk about during our MVP. Of course, he's not the MVP of the first half, but statistically, a monster because he has to throw the ball. But I like Seattle in this one over Washington. Give me the Hawks over the Commanders in this matchup. Down following that, Sunday Night Football, the New York Jets, the Jets, Jets. They are leaving the state of New Jersey because they're really not even from New York to head over to Sin City to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Right now, the Jets favored by 0.5 point. Tight line. Give me the Raiders. Give me the Raiders in this one. They want to run through a brick wall for Antonio Pierce. I think that he's got these guys pointed in the right direction as far as finishing the season out strong. Give me the Raiders in this one over the Jets.
Yeah, this was honestly one of the tougher picks to make this week just because of the way Vegas has turned things around, the energy in that team and hosting this Sunday Night Football game at home. But this Jets team is just seemingly finding ways to get it done and not fall behind this season. They're 4-4. They're keeping pace. Zach Wilson's doing enough. This defense is carrying. They've got obvious flaws, but I feel like Vegas has more flaws. I'm going to take the Jets, Jets, Jets to get it done on Sunday night. And that leads us to our final game on Monday Night Football, Mitch. The Denver Broncos, 3-5, headed to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills. 5-4 on the season. Buffalo needs to get a win, needs to keep pace with Miami, frankly, in the rest of the AFC in the playoff race. They're favored -7.5 at home, and they get it done. Give me Buffalo, but not to cover. This Denver team has been competitive of late. Russell Wilson, efficient offensively. Can the defense step up? I don't think so, but Denver puts up a competitive fight in this game. Buffalo gets it done.
Yeah, Sean Payton seems to be turning this team around just a hair. I like it, but I got 4 words for you. Let's ride. A Buffalo. Let's ride a Buffalo. Give me the Buffalo Bills. No one circles the wagons quite like the Buffalo Bills. Give me Buffalo on the road or at home against Denver on Monday Night Football. Prime time. Seems like a great time for them to get it done. I like the Bills against the Broncos.
There you go. That's it for the quick picks this week. We'll see if Mitch can close the gap a little bit as he looks to It looks to, that nine games is tough, but again, halfway through the season, a lot of time left.
A lot of ball left.
But no ball left on this podcast. That'll do it for the podcast today, folks. It's all we got. We appreciate you sticking around, hanging out as always. If you joined us live on YouTube, again at youtube.com/thesportshourguys, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Sports Hour Guys, we appreciate you tuning in. If you listen on your podcast feed, we appreciate it. Follow the socials if you don't. Mention the YouTube and the X. Follow Instagram or TikTok at the Sports Hour Guys. We always post content, especially on the Instagram, keeping you up to date as when we're going live. So if you want to know when the next episode's coming, stay tuned to the Instagram. Mitch, remind people where they can find the podcast.
You can find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Get on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Look up the Sports Hour Guys, and you will find us there. Get on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a rating and review. Tell us that we suck, because, Dallen, that is the only way that we can get better.
It is the only way that we can get better. Fun weeks ahead. End of the college football season. Second half of the NFL season. NBA. Couple weeks in in-season tournament. We got to see some of those in-season courts. Have you seen the court designs for those in-season games for the NBA?
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting colors, and just, I don't know. The NBA is doing some interesting things. It's a fun time of year for sports, and always more to come here on the podcast as we do. So we'll leave it there with you folks. Appreciate you joining. Until next time, we love you. We appreciate you, and we will catch you next week.
So long, everyone, and a very pleasant good evening to you, wherever you may be. See ya!